I'm going to try something a little bit different. I've been posting old interviews from Headbangers Ball and stuff, and I'm still acquiring tapes and going to do that in these readings. But what I wanted to do now is something I've seen done multiple times, which is ranking albums. So one of my favorite bands since I was a teenager is the band Queensryche. And they have released 17 full-length albums under the moniker Queensryche. And if you're familiar at all with them, you know that's kind of a mixed bag. However, what I'm going to do, instead of ranking all the albums, I'm going to rank my top 10. And in there will be an album that's not considered a full-length album, but is significant that it be in there, and that is the Queensryche EP. So here we go. At number 10, I place American Soldier. The reason why it was nice for Queensryche maybe not to get back to a full concept album, but to have a themed album. And I thought the album was okay. They had gotten away, at least from the whole kind of groove metal thing. And that being stated too, they had done Operation Mindcrime 2 about 2 or 3 years previous. And it was a nice return to form, at least conceptually. The music itself, they did more rock this time. And overall, I really don't go back to the album all that often. But I did see him on that tour, the American Soldier tour with Lita Ford, and really honestly enjoyed the show. They did what they called suites, 3 suites. They did the American Soldier suite, an Empire suite, where they did a handful of songs off Empire, and the Rage for Order suite. To it, they did a handful of songs off Rage for Order. So I enjoyed it. At number 9 is the aforementioned Operation Mindcrime 2. Supposedly, they had gone back and recreated the drum sound that Scott Rockenfield had on the initial Mindcrime release. It is a nice follow-up. The music is not as progressive. It was nice having Ronnie James Dio come in as Dr. X, and the back and forth between him and Jeff Tate was absolutely fantastic. Overall, I thought the album, again, was just kind of okay. Nothing exceptional. Nothing really kind of stands out from it for me as on, the prequel, Operation Mindcrime. So, like I said, not a bad album, but not exactly memorable. And number 8 is Here in the Now Frontier. This is the last album to have the original lineup. Chris DeGarmo left after this album. He really was kind of the driving force behind Here in the Now Frontier. It is definitely got a grunge influence to it, but still keeping some of their progressive rock elements. DeGarmo even takes lead vocals on one of the tracks. And if you consider Empire to Promised Land to Here in the Now Frontier, the progression of the musical styles makes sense. But and there were a couple of tunes on there that I genuinely liked. The lead single, Sign of the Times, the Chris DeGarmo track, You, the ending track, Spool, Some People Fly. I thought those were really interesting tracks. They also recorded a track which eventually ended up as a bonus track on the CD-ROM for Promised Land, Chasing Blue Sky. But like I said, it was definitely grunge influenced, but really didn't give in to the grunge sound the way a lot of bands did at that time. At number 7, we have Tribe. Tribe, I genuinely like the spirit of Tribe. The album before Tribe, an album that actually doesn't make this list, called what was that called? Q2K. It came out in 1999. It was definitely grunge influenced. Very late to the game, being 1999. It had no progressive elements to it. Everything was groove oriented. I really didn't care for it. I found it to be an incredibly boring album. However, Tribe, where it goes into groove, it doesn't seem contrived. It seems genuine. There seems to be heart behind it. Supposedly, a lot of the lyrics were influenced by Jeff Tate, kind of riding through the country, I believe, on a motorcycle, much akin to what Neil Peart went through up in Canada, and culminated in the album Vapor Trails. Now, that may be just a pedestrian look at those two albums, but Tribe I actually really enjoy. I can actually put on Tribe and enjoy it. It's a good album. Again, not really any progressive rock elements to it, but a very nice album. And it seems sincere, and I think the sincerity behind it, as opposed to the obvious contrivance behind Q2K, really separates the two albums. And at number 6 is Promised Land. This was a really highly anticipated album. It came out 4 years after Empire, which had a life of its own and really kind of broke Queensryche to everyone. Promised Land was an interesting follow-up. It had sort of a groove element to it, still had progressive rock elements there. The lead single, I Am I, was fantastic. They followed it up with Bridge, which I wasn't a fan of, but, whatever. One of my favorite tracks, bar none, is the second track, Damaged. Damage is absolutely a fantastic, that song's just intense. And Disconnected, I adore too. The crowning song on there for me, though, is the final track. The piano voice, someone else. It's just DeGarmo playing piano, Tate singing, and it's just haunting. It is a beautiful song. On the 2003 re-release, they put the full band version, which I actually imported out of a single because I really wanted to hear a full band version. And it's good. It's really good. And if it were on the album and you didn't know about the piano voice version, hey, it would have been an excellent song to have on the album. But the piano voice was definitely the way to go with that song. Again, I use the word haunting, and that's what it is. I mean, it just comes off so melancholy, and it's just this really wonderful, heartfelt song. But honestly, Promised Land as a whole, I know turned out to be a disappointment to people who kind of got into Queensryche on Empire, and I know they're hardcore fans. Queensryche were just not even really kind of reinventing themselves. I think they were just trying to keep themselves interested in creating music and didn't want to do the same thing over and over again. Around that time, too, they had done a song for a Schwarzenegger movie called Last Action Hero. The song was called Real World. It had orchestration by Michael Kamen. It's absolutely a stunningly beautiful song. It starts off very soft. It kind of builds the momentum and this kind of chaos with the orchestra and the band. And it's really a wonderful track that wouldn't have been out of place on Promised Land, in my opinion. But if you get the 2000 remaster, it is actually, I believe it's one of the bonus tracks on there. So, awesome. Because, again, if you've never heard the song, it's a fantastic song, and I just really highly recommend it. At number 5, we have the aforementioned Empire. This was the album that broke Queensryche to the mainstream. They had garnered a lot of fans with their previous release, but they released the track Empire, which was the lead single from it. They followed that up with Best I Can, but obviously anybody who has a rudimentary knowledge of Queensryche associates them with their mega single Silent Lucidity. And rightfully so. Silent Lucidity, again, another orchestration with Michael Kamen. Definitely got very hard comparisons to Pink Floyd, rightfully so. To me, it doesn't sound like a Pink Floyd track as much as it has the spirit of Pink Floyd. Like, I wouldn't say that it sounds like Comfortably Numb or sounds like, Wish You Were Here or something like that. It is just, it stands on its own. And maybe because of Michael Kamen's orchestration, who has also worked with Pink Floyd, I don't know. But that album itself had some singles. I was really surprised. There are 2 songs on there, One and Only and Hand and Heart, which never became singles, but really lent themselves to more kind of a radio-friendly, MTV-friendly sound, more so than Another Rainy Night or Jet City Woman. But, it worked out the way it did. And Queensryche were able to properly execute a live show related to their concept album Operation Mindcrime because of the success of Empire. So when you went and saw Queensryche on that tour, you got to see Mindcrime in its entirety, and is definitely well worth ticket price. At number 4, I am including the self-titled Queensryche album, the EP from 1983. Now, typically one wouldn't include EPs, but Rare has a band been signed to a major label, and the major label been so impressed with the EP that they didn't do anything with it. They honestly took the 206 EP, 4 songs, they slapped it to vinyl and cassette, and they put it out. They didn't remix it, didn't remaster it, didn't do anything, because Tom Hall had done such a fantastic job with it. And obviously the standout track, Queen of the Ryche, and the first song that DeGarmo and Tate had ever written together, The Lady Wore Black, is on that album. And again, just 4 songs, but wow, what a tremendous release. And I think much more important to be in the top 10 list as opposed to other full-length albums that couldn't even hold the EP's water, to be honest. At number 3, I have Queensryche's first full-length debut album from 1984 on EMI, The Warning. And oh wow, this is actually the song that introduced me to Queensryche is actually on this album, a song called Deliverance. I had bought a cassette that had different artists on it, like Zebra and YNT and this band Queensryche. And Deliverance came on, and it was like magic. I was already into Priest, already into Scorpions and stuff, but Tate's voice was beyond anything I could have ever imagined somebody singing in the genre of hard rock and heavy metal. And to me, this album is fantastic from beginning to end. Starts off with the track Warning. You have No Sanctuary, number 156, which is a tremendous song. The ending song, Road to Madness, is tremendous. This actually introduced us to Queensryche properly, whereas the EP had more of a standard kind of heavy metal vibe, not a whole lot of progress there, because the first 3 tracks were already established before Tate joined, and Lady Wore Black is this ballad. In The Warning, we really get progressive influences in there, progressive rock, progressive metal, especially, like I said, in the track Road to Madness, Sanctuary, Enforce, and of course the big song off the album, the one that is a live favorite to this day, whether it's Tate or Todd La Torre singing, is Take Hold of the Flame. So again, just absolutely love the Warning album from '84. And number 2, Operation Mindcrime. Yes, the fantastic, absolutely brilliant concept album that people hold up as, as important as Pink Floyd's The Wall or The Who's Quadrophenia. And what a tremendously great album it is. And when Mindcrime was released, people like myself who were already into Queensryche, we went out, we bought it, like as soon as it was released, we took it home and just absorbed it and went over and over and over with it. But for Queensryche, the sales were as good or around the same as Rageful Order. It wasn't until they released the video for the single Eyes of a Stranger that, bam, Queensryche broke. I mean, holy cow. They broke big time. They were all over MTV. That song was everywhere. And as that song can be looked to, that song really was the precursor for what happened with Empire. And the momentum from Eyes of a Stranger, because they released a couple of singles after that. They released I Don't Believe in Love and Breaking the Silence, but honestly, nothing garnered the attention that like Eyes of a Stranger did. And Eyes of a Stranger, that momentum going into Empire, Queensryche, it was that 5 minutes that they ruled the world. And rightfully so. What a fantastic band, what a fantastic kind of few years for Queensryche. And but yeah, can't say enough good things about Operation Mindcrime. Of course, Pamela Moore's vocals as Sister Mary, and just a brilliant concept from beginning to end, and just a very enjoyable album. And honestly, for me, not a bad moment on there. Not a bad moment. And at number 1, Rage for Order, 1986. This is, for me, my favorite Queensryche album. It came out right after I turned 16 years old. I got it within a couple of weeks, maybe, of turning 16. And they already had a video on MTV for the song Gonna Get Close to You, a cover they did of a Lisa Dalbello song, which I didn't know was a cover. You know, I honestly didn't know for years what a cover. I figured it was just somebody who wrote the song. But so I grabbed this album. I still have the original vinyl to this day. And I mean, you put it on and just, I mean, one after the other, Walk in the Shadows, I Dream Infrared, The Whisper, you keep going and keep going. And side 2, one of the songs that just, London into Screaming in Digital. Just these 2 songs that maybe not supposed to be a theme, but holy cow, just they were burned in my brain. The last song on side 1, Surgical Strike. I mean, every song on here just kills. Every song kills. It just it beats and beats and beats. It is a fantastic song, and ends amazingly enough with a ballad. This beautiful, whispering, melancholy ballad called I Will Remember. An absolutely stunningly beautiful song. And like I said, when that album came out, that was not just my favorite album of 1986. It's probably my favorite album of the 80s, period. I mean, there are albums that infect your soul and become a part of who you are and kind of defined your childhood. And for me, without a doubt, Queensryche's Rage for Order is that album. And trying to be unbiased, I honestly think is their greatest album. Even on the Building Empire's videotape, or home video, the Building Empire's home video, even Tate says they should have promoted the album more, maybe done another video or 2, because when you have what you have on the Warning, you have these guys dressed in black, and they're this progressive metal band, and then in Rage they kind of had this kind of goth vampire thing going, not just in the video for Gonna Get Close to You, but in the imagery that surrounds the album. And then when we get to the next album, Operation Mindcrime, they've gone back to street clothes. They're not trying to emulate any sort of look. They just look like a rock band. And Rage for Order was in the middle of them trying to figure out who they were and who they were going to be. And when Chris DeGarmo left the band after Here in the Now Frontier, you know, when Tate joined Queensryche, he was coming from a band called Myth, and what he brought with him was them going from a heavy metal band to a progressive rock to a progressive metal band. And they could have done anything after DeGarmo left. And the next album that came, the first album to come out without DeGarmo on it was Q2K in 99, and it is the most boring album. No progressive rock, no progressive elements. It is just like they didn't even try. I wish they would have gone back and introduced or reintroduced progressive rock or progressive metal, but they chose not to. So we get, Tribe, we get Operation Mindcrime 2, which again has progressive elements, but only because the predecessor demanded it. Though that is another talk for another time. So I appreciate you listening. That is my top 10 list for my favorite Queensryche albums. And, we'll do another top 10 list later. Tell me what you think. Have a great night. See you in the next one.